As many people know, as common sense, there are multiple paths to take regarding the future. This is even the case for those who recently graduated college and plan to achieve the goals they would settle on. Caden is one of those people as of now and has ideas for his career choices.
Of course, they are all different choices, though it might not hurt to practice multiple careers at once, especially to make a living. We are the Robosoft 3 and Robosoft 4 of Caden Vanshiel's YouTube channels, and we are fleshing out what we and Caden can regarding his future plans.
Before starting, we'd like to point out Caden being diagnosed with autism and being a multitasker. Now let's discuss the ideas. This first idea, available on Wattpad, is for a Genndy Tartakovsky-inspired Transformers series that utilizes visual storytelling, CGI animation of the Cybertronians and similar entities, the buildings and inorganic vehicles and objects, and fluid 2D animation of the humans, animals, and plants without any outlines.
He would envision the series as being a Paramount Plus original and thought of a unique voice cast with returning actors and newcomers. As of now, it might need updates. It would still include a selection of the familiar sound effects by Joel Valentine from Genndy's many projects alongside the familiar transformation sound effects you'd expect to hear when looking at a Transformers project dating back to the 1980s. This second project would be a conceptual animated Disney Plus original series inspired by Amphibia, The Owl House, and Steven Universe, with obscure SU references, and other feats about a potential linguist looking after a surrogate sister, only to discover another world, as well as ways to traverse back and forth. Others like new friends and new antagonists would be involved, with new discoveries occurring.
And because of the lack of Conlangs, though Caden doesn't mind, he feels that there should be a series to include those, with him and others that aren't Mark Cochran, Paul Frommer, or David J. Peterson creating the Conlang families and isolates. Like Amphibia, TOH, and Halley's on it, there could be a few Crewniverse veterans involved as well, and Easter eggs that are linked to the overall story, maybe foreshadowing as well. The idea needs to be revised at some point, and Caden plans on adding videos to his alternate channels as well. This third idea is a so far hypothetical collaboration with himself and Genndy Tartakovsky as co-creators, and himself and David J. Peterson creating the Conlang. A series of old-school cartoon aesthetics, dialogue-less scenes, long enough shot timing, and so forth, showcasing the development and evolution, and maybe a diversification, of a language and culture should work well in theory.
While the first season would detail the overall natural development of the culture and language of a fictional indigenous people, random gibberish becoming words that would later become a fully operational language, as well as the evolution of that language and culture over time, the second season would take place in the present day, with a group of Westerners finding themselves in this area and learning the language and culture, forming bonds with the modern indigenous people. While the first season would detail the overall natural development of the culture and language of a fictional indigenous people, random gibberish becoming words that would later become a fully operational language, as well as the evolution of that language and culture over time, the second season would take place in the present day, with a group of Westerners finding themselves in this area and learning the language and culture, forming bonds with the modern indigenous people. This idea could still be expanded upon, with some intense battles that might exist, and some romantic relationships, like a Westerner voiced by Sean and a native voiced by Halley falling in love with each other, among other factors. Caden thought of other conceptual ideas that can be found on Wattpad, like a warehouse truck stop, or a world dominated by amphibious vehicles and restaurants traversing oceans and whatnot, all of which can be found on DeviantArt and Wattpad, links in the description.
He also plans on looking for attorneys to help him out with pitches and lawsuits, however there might be in the Los Angeles area or other parts of the US. There are other plans of his, like investing in car wash businesses, as Sam talked about in an alternate channel, being a franchisee for Johnny Rockets, or other practical, by his standards these days, companies in the Central Valley and maybe the Central Coast as well.
These regions are those that Caden knows well, though he'd like to tour the Central Coast itself someday, especially Arroyo Grande. Since Francis Ford Coppola owns a winery and is still directing films, it would make sense for someone like Caden, a multitasker, to invest in multiple careers at a time, though there's also the problem of focus.
a lot of different careers to practice all at once, especially since, aside from paying off higher-ups, he'd still need money not only for improvements but also to make up entire film or series budgets, or portions of them, which might ease problems for the film or network executives in terms of how much they'd be willing to invest, wherever American society is like that. We're Caden Van Shields Robosoft 3 and Robosoft 4, and here's to hoping for new videos by him on his main and alternate channels.